My daughter asked me once why her fingernails turn blue when she's cold. She was 6, sitting on the kitchen counter while I made cocoa, swinging her little legs and looking at her hands like they were the most fascinating thing she'd ever seen. I told her it was just her body being dramatic. She laughed. I loved that laugh. I'm telling you this because I need you to understand who Hazel is before I tell you what my sister did to her. I need you to see her, really see her, before you hear the rest. It was the last Saturday in October, my sister's birthday. My mother had organized a dinner at my parents' house, the kind of dinner our family does where everyone shows up with the dish they didn't actually cook and spends the whole evening competing for who can make the most pointed comment while still technically smiling. I almost didn't go. I'd had a headache since Thursday. Hazel had been fighting a mild cold, and I knew that these gatherings never ended well for me. But my mother called that morning. It's your sister's birthday. You're coming. Don't make this difficult. And I, like I always do, said okay. My sister. I'll call her by what she is, not her name, the favorite, had been insufferable since she turned 24. She'd gotten engaged to a man our parents adored, landed a job that impressed our father, and had recently developed the particular smutness of someone who believes their luck is actually merit. She wasn't cruel in an obvious way. She was cruel in the way that always left me wondering if I'd imagined it. A smile that lasted a beat too long. A compliment shaped like a knife. You look so tired, but in like a real mom way, you know? I'd been managing her for years. I thought I was good at it by now. Hazel wore her yellow dress that night, the one with the small white daisies around the hem that she picked out herself at Target and talked about for 2 weeks straight. She looked so proud walking into my parents' house, smoothing the skirt with both hands, trying to act casual about how beautiful she felt. My chest does something complicated when I think about that now. Dinner was loud and wine-heavy and mostly fine. My father grilled steaks. My mother made 3 different side dishes and complained about all of them. My sister sat at the center of everything, which is where she prefers to be, opening cards and laughing too loudly and putting her hand on her fiancé's arm every few minutes to remind the room he existed and was hers. Hazel sat next to me and ate her steak in small, careful bites. She was shy around large groups, always had been, but she was trying. She answered when my aunts asked her questions. She said yes please and no thank you. She was, as she always is, perfect. The cake came out after dinner. My mother dims the lights for this part, which I find theatrical, but whatever. Everyone sang. My sister blew out candles. There was the usual chaos of cutting slices and passing plates and someone knocking over a glass of sparkling cider. That's when I saw it. My sister had her phone out. She'd been filming for a while. I realized I just hadn't noticed when it started. She was pointing it at Hazel. And in her other hand, held low and half hidden behind the back of her chair, was a small plastic cup. I registered what was happening about 2 seconds too late. She tipped it fast, like it was nothing, like it was a punchline to a joke she'd been building all night. Red liquid. I found out later it was a mix of food coloring and water, the kind of harmless prank she would have typed into a search engine, splashed across Hazel's yellow dress, up her arm, and across the side of her face. Hazel screamed, not the startled kind, the kind that comes from somewhere real. The room erupted into laughter. My mother, my aunts, my father, the fiancé. My sister was already watching the video she'd just taken, her shoulders shaking, making that high-pitched sound she makes when she thinks something is hilarious. I was already out of my chair. I got to Hazel in 3 steps. She was shaking, both hands over her face, crying the kind of tears that come before the sound catches up. There was red liquid dripping from her hair, soaking into the daisy hem of her dress. I pulled her hands away from her face and looked at her eyes. Her left eye was red, not pink, red. "Baby," I said, trying to keep my voice level, "does your eye hurt? Does it burn?" She nodded. She couldn't get words out yet. Behind me, I could hear my sister still laughing. "Oh, come on, it's just food coloring. It washes out." I turned around. I don't fully remember deciding to do what I did next. I remember seeing her phone still in her hand, the video still playing, Hazel's screaming face looping on the screen. I remember thinking about the chemicals in food dye, about how the internet had reviews from parents whose toddlers had gotten it in their eyes, about how the closest urgent care closed at 8 and it was 7:47. I grabbed the phone and I threw it, not at anyone, against the tile floor of my parents' kitchen, hard and flat, the way you throw something when you want it to stop existing. The screen spiderwebbed, the room went completely silent. My sister sucked in a breath. She has food coloring in her eye, I said. My voice came out much steadier than I felt. I need the lights on, and I need everyone to step back. No one moved. Lights, I said again, louder. My father reached for the wall switch. I carried Hazel to the kitchen sink and ran cool water, tipping her head gently, keeping my hand at the back of her neck, so she felt the weight of me there, so she knew I was right there. She flinched, but let me do it. It's going to be okay, I said, quietly enough that only she could hear. You're okay, I've got you. My mother appeared at my elbow. Her voice was low and very deliberate. You need to calm down. I am calm, I said. I kept rinsing. You broke her phone. I'll address that after I make sure my daughter's eye isn't damaged. You're overreacting. It was, Mom. I didn't raise my voice. If you say it was just a joke to me right now, you need to physically leave this kitchen. She didn't say it. She also didn't leave. She stood there making the face she makes when she believes she's being very patient with an unreasonable person. My sister had come to stand in the doorway. Her arms were crossed. Her fiancé was behind her with his hand on her shoulder, which in our family is the staging position for moral support through proximity. She said, "You need to apologize. You could have hurt me, throwing a phone like that." I looked at her. I actually looked at her the way you look at something you're finally seeing clearly after a long time of choosing not to. "I need to take my daughter to the emergency room," I said. "We'll talk after. Hazel is fine. You put a foreign substance in a 6-year-old's eye." I heard my voice go flat in a way that surprised me. "You filmed her crying for content, and you want me to apologize." The room was very quiet. Hazel had stopped shaking. She was still wet, still smudged with red, still wearing the ruined daisy dress, but she had gone quiet in that particular way. Children go quiet when they understand that something real is happening and they are at the center of it, and they don't know what that means yet. I dried her face with a dish towel. I checked her eye again. The redness had decreased, but it was still there, still enough. I picked up her little jacket from the chair where she'd folded it. "We're leaving," I said. "My mother said if you walk out right now, then I walk out right now." I drove directly to the emergency room. I know that surprised people. I know because my phone started buzzing before I even got Hazel buckled in. But here's the thing about having food coloring splash into your child's eye. You don't actually know what's in it. You don't know what preservatives or compounds or concentrations. You don't know if the eye redness is nothing or something. And I had decided, sitting on the cold tile of my parents' kitchen floor with my daughter's wet hair in my hands, that I was going to be the kind of mother who found out. The ER nurse was kind. She did a full eye exam, flushed the eye properly, asked me to describe what happened. I described it. She wrote it down without expression, which is the skill that ER nurses develop from years of hearing the things people do to each other and needing to remain functional enough to help. Hazel's eye was fine. Minor irritation, no lasting damage. The doctor said she was lucky it was water-based. I said, "I know." My voice cracked on that one. Hazel fell asleep on the way home, which is what she does when she's been through something big and her body needs to close the tab. I carried her in and changed her, and she didn't fully wake up once. I sat on the edge of her bed for a while in the dark, listening to her breathe, thinking about yellow dresses and daisy hems and the particular sound of a room full of adults laughing at a child who was crying. My phone had 41 messages by the time I came back downstairs. "My mother, you embarrassed this family tonight. Your sister is devastated. My sister, I hope you're happy. You ruined my birthday and now I have a cracked phone and nothing from you. My father, this was an overreaction. Your sister was just playing around. You owe her an apology. 3 of my aunts, 2 cousins. My sister's fiancé, who apparently decided his opinion was necessary. My sister's name is really upset, and you should know that. I put my phone on the counter and made tea and read every single message. Then I called the non-emergency police line. I know. I know that sounds extreme to some people. I want to explain something. I had spent most of my life in that family being told that my reactions were too big, that I was too sensitive, that I was overreacting, overdramatic, making things difficult. I had spent 31 years absorbing the message that my instincts about what was and was not acceptable were wrong because the family consensus said so. Hazel's eye was red. I filed a report. I described the incident. I described the video, a 6-year-old child filmed without consent being deliberately doused with liquid and recorded while screaming by an adult family member. I asked what my options were regarding documentation and next steps. The officer I spoke with was thorough. She told me that depending on intent and injury, what I was describing could potentially be considered child endangerment and that having a documented report would be helpful if I decided to pursue anything further. I thanked her. I hung up. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time after that. Here's what happened next, and I want to be precise. I did not send a dramatic message. I did not call a family meeting. I did not post anything on social media. I simply stopped answering. My mother called 4 times the following morning. I let them go to voicemail. My father texted asking if I'd calmed down yet. I did not respond. My sister sent a long message that said she had meant it as a fun surprise, that Hazel had overreacted, that she had done research and food coloring was non-toxic, and that I owed her for the phone because her data was on it. On the 3rd day, my mother called for my aunt's number, which I hadn't blocked yet. I picked up without thinking. I just want to talk, she said. Okay, I said. Your sister is very hurt. She was just trying to include Hazel, Mom. What? I filed a police report. The silence that followed was not the comfortable kind. I beg your pardon. The night it happened, I filed a report documenting what she did and the ER visit. I want you to know that exists. More silence. You filed a. Hazel was fine. Hazel's eye was examined by a doctor. She was seen in the emergency room. I have documentation of all of that. I'm not telling you this to start a war. I'm telling you because I need you to understand that I am not doing what I've always done, which is absorb whatever happens to me or my daughter and then come back to Sunday dinners like nothing occurred. I stopped. I'm not angry at you, Mom. I'm just not available right now. I ended the call. My mother showed up at my house 4 days later. She rang the doorbell twice, knocked, rang again. I watched through the side window for a while, trying to decide. Hazel was at school. I was home alone. I opened the door. She looked older than I expected, or maybe I'd just stopped really looking at her face. She had a Tupperware of something under her arm, which is what she brings when she wants to apologize without using any of the words. Can I come in? She asked. Yes, I said. She sat at my kitchen table. I made coffee. We didn't say anything for a minute. I didn't think it was serious, she said finally. When it happened, I thought Hazel was just startled and you were. She stopped. Overreacting, I said. I was going to say, I don't know what I was going to say. She looked at her hands. She has my hands. Or I have hers. That detail has always made things more complicated than it should. The thing is, she said slowly, when you picked her up and started rinsing her eye, I knew it was serious. But by then, everyone had already laughed, and I didn't know how to. I just stood there. She looked up. I should have said something. I looked at her for a long moment. No one in that room stood up for Hazel, I said. Not one adult. She was crying and shaking and covered in liquid and everyone laughed. My mother's eyes were wet. I know. She's 6. My voice came out quiet. Not angry anymore, just tired and precise. She asked me on the way to the hospital if she'd done something wrong. She thought she'd done something wrong. My mother put her face in her hands. I let the silence sit. Eventually, I asked her what was in the Tupperware. She said, pot roast. I said, okay. She stayed another half hour and we talked about nothing in particular, and then she left. I didn't tell her everything was fine because it wasn't. I didn't tell her we were past it because we weren't. I told her I appreciated her coming over and that was true, and that I needed more time and that was true, and that I needed more time and that was true, and that Hazel was going to be okay, and that was the truest thing I said. My sister never reached out to ask about Hazel's eye, not once, not a text, not a message, nothing. She did post a long caption on Instagram about how family can really show you who they are during hard times, with a picture of herself at a coffee shop looking wistful, and she did ask my father to ask me about reimbursement for her phone. My father passed along the request. I responded to my father directly. I told him that I had documentation of a medical visit resulting from what his other daughter had done, that I was happy to have a conversation about phone costs once his other daughter reached out personally to ask how Hazel was, and that until then I considered the matter closed. He called her. She did not reach out. The matter remained closed. I've been asked, since then, if I regret throwing the phone. People ask this like the phone is the part worth examining. I don't regret it. I regret that I had to. I regret that the choice was between standing still while someone filmed my screaming child or doing something that the room would register as the thing that was wrong. I regret that the calculus of my family had always worked that way, that the person who reacted was always more interesting than whatever they were reacting to. But the phone? No. Hazel wore a different dress to my cousin's thing last month. Green with little orange birds on it. She picked it out herself. When we pulled into the driveway and she saw it was a big family gathering, she looked at me in the back seat with those eyes that ask everything without asking it. I'm right next to you the whole time, I told her. She thought about that, then she nodded and got out of the car. I followed her up the driveway, watching her little shoulders squared up and ready, thinking about how much courage it takes to walk into a room where you once got hurt and try again anyway. I thought, she learned that from somewhere. I hoped it was from me. I've been thinking a lot lately about what it actually costs to stay quiet. Not the obvious kind of quiet, not biting your tongue at Thanksgiving or letting a comment slide at a family dinner. I mean the long, accumulated quiet of someone who has spent years convincing herself that keeping the peace was the same thing as being good. I was very good at that kind of quiet. I practiced it my entire life. What happened at that birthday dinner broke something open in me that I don't think I want to close back up. When my sister tipped that cup and the room laughed, I wasn't just angry at what she'd done to Hazel. I was angry at myself, at every time I'd swallowed something wrong because the family consensus said I was overreacting. That anger was information. I just finally decided to listen to it. Here's what I've come to understand about the way actions settle into consequences. It's rarely dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. My sister didn't lose everything in a single moment. She just lost access to me, to Hazel, to the version of our relationship where I showed up regardless of how I'd been treated because that's what family does. She traded that for a video, for a laugh, for 30 seconds of content that she thought was harmless. And the thing about trading something without realizing its value is that you don't feel the loss until it's already done. That's not punishment. That's just how it works. The choices we make with other people's dignity have a way of determining what those people are willing to extend to us. My sister made her choice in about 3 seconds. I made mine over the following week. Neither of us can unmake them. What I want Hazel to understand, not now, she's 6, but someday, is that protecting yourself is not the same as being cruel. There is a version of strength that looks like stillness. It doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't perform. It just gets very clear about what it will and will not absorb, and then it acts on that clarity without apology. I want her to know that's available to her, that she doesn't have to earn the right to take her own side. The intelligence piece of it, the part I had to learn the hard way, is knowing the difference between a situation that needs a reaction and one that needs a decision. I reacted when I grabbed that phone. I decided when I called the non-emergency line that night, when I let my mother's calls go to voicemail, when I opened the door for her 4 days later and let her sit at my table without telling her everything was fine. Reactions are fast and necessary sometimes. Decisions are what determine where you go after. And the part that took me longest to learn, staying, is a choice. Every time I drove to a family gathering knowing how it usually ended, I was making a choice. I just wasn't calling it that. Once I started calling it that, once I understood that I was choosing this and that I could choose differently, everything got quieter. Not easier, quieter. There's a difference. Hazel squared her shoulders walking into that family gathering last month. Green dress, little orange birds. She didn't know she was being brave. She was just doing the next thing. I think that's what courage usually looks like. Not the version with music behind it, just the next thing, and then the next, with someone who loves you close enough to catch you if it goes wrong. I'm working on being that person for her. I think I'm getting better at it,